to everyone. Oh, yeah, you had a good sleep, not the nightmare. So the talk. With this greeting, we are going to start this gathering. As I mentioned last few days, helpful and usefulness of starting the day, starting an event with the right positive, constructive motivation or intention. Positive, constructive motivation according to one's own mental dispositions, mental strength. Something from our heart, very sincere and very genuine and positive, constructive motivation is very, very helpful. We all are capable, able to hold, to raise many layers, many levels of positive mind, thoughts, and emotions, regardless of our different backgrounds. As I gave you last few mornings, as that very simple, yet very, very positive and helpful from the heart thinking. Today, this Friday, I'm going to spend my day activities of the mind, body, speech, and mind. At least minimum, intentionally, deliberately, with a choice, not to cause harm to others. Others can be our close family members, friends, colleagues, and strangers, human and non-human, directly or indirectly. And try to maintain that kind of intention, at least in the subconscious level. And during the day, every now and then, briefly remind ourselves that morning how we set our motivation. And if it is possible, not only intentionally, deliberately, not going to harm others, but if it is possible, if there is a chance, opportunity, then very intentionally, deliberately support others. Again, the others can be our close family members or completely strangers. Doesn't need to be huge numbers of living beings. It can be just one living being. It doesn't need to be huge amounts of support, as simple as very deliberately, intentionally giving a cup of tea, glass of water, or showing the direction when they ask, whatever, as simple, small as like that, with the, clear, deliberate motivation. And that is here, as I said several times, training our mind. And if we train our mind, it will learn. Then of course, people who have a spiritual path to follow, then set our motivation according to that spiritual path we are following. People who follow the teachings of the Buddha, as I said last few mornings, holding the mind, taking refuge, going for refuge in three jewels, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Buddha as a teacher, mentor, Dhamma, the teachings, as an actual means and methods to be applied in our daily lives and to be experienced within ourselves. And Sangha as a one's own spiritual friends, supporters. As a follower of the teachings of the Buddha, this mind will be very, very helpful to hold morning, during the day, afternoon, in the evening. In the refuge lines that we recite, it says, until to experience the full enlightenment. In other words, three jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, as our refuge, until ourselves be free from dukkha and the origins of dukkha. Then people who follow Bodhisattva and the teachings within the teachings of the Buddha, follow the Bodhisattva and the teachings, then cultivation, holding the altruistic awakened mind. Bodhicitta is very crucial to enhance in a broad sense, that is, the mind genuinely, sincerely cares, concerns well-beings of all living beings without any discriminations, without any selections or exclusions. Cultivation, enhancing this mind, the altruistic mind, is extremely helpful, first of all, to ourselves. This will minimize, this will reduce one of the main troublemakers or the obstacles in our mental continuum. That is the self-centered mind, egoistic mind. The self-centered mind, that grasping, is very, very unhelpful to ourselves and to the people that we share our lives. And to minimize, to reduce that self-centered mind attitude is cultivating very deliberately, intentionally, enhancing this altruistic mind is helpful. With the refuge and bodhicitta minds as our main motivations to live this life in general, and particularly today, and within that, during these sessions, as our main motivations. Now we will say the refuge, and people who like to join with me, saying the refuge in bodhicittas, join. Sākye chekna tsoli chana chamcho velato dāne jāsu che dāge jinso jive tsona ji dola penje sanje duwa sho. Sāngye chektāṃ sōgye chānāṃ chāngcō pātū tāni gyāsō che dāgye jīnsō jīve sōnāṃ jī dōlā bējī sāngye dūpā. Sāngye chektāṃ sōgye chānāṃ chāngcō pātū tāni gyāsō che dāgye jīnsō jīve sōnāṃ jī dōlā bējī sāngye dūpā. morning, first session, quoting from one of the most well-known texts in the Pali tradition as well as in Sanskrit tradition, that is Dhammapada. Dhammapada in Tibetan, 36 step. It is a text which put together many, the short teachings given by the historical Buddha in many occasions, and later his followers put together and written in a verse stanzas form. In Pali, it exists in Pali language, also in Sanskrit, and from Sanskrit it is also translated into English. I'm sure many other languages, into Tibetan and English, and there are, I'm sure, many other languages. Very beautiful text. One of the verse, which is here that I'm going to quote, first I'll say in Tibetan, Mani Chodo Tabe Lamdeki, Tabarangara Shenjimin. So these out of the verse, 4 lines, these first 2 lines are very, very helpful to reflect on when we choose, by our own choice, when we choose the teachings of the Buddha as a one's own spiritual path. In this world, there are many great spiritual traditions. Many of them have a long histories and major followers, and no doubt have served the communities very well. So they have a slightly, some philosophically, there are major differences. Overall, as a function is concerned, really to serve humanity, to serve living beings, human beings. And that, as far as that is concerned, I think all those world major religious traditions have the same goal. As His Holiness Dalai Lama says very often, that he had a deep respect towards all the world major religious traditions, because their own goal is same, to serve the humanity, living beings. But there are, generally speaking, also, for example, while I was in West, I have participated many integrate, the seminars, conferences. Majority of them are very much, those conferences, seminars are just one day, and like more brave, paying respects to each other. But there are some interfaith organizations that are joined sometimes a week duration, whole week, sit together, pray together, share, common points, discuss the differences, and through that to build, sincere, what you call the genuine friendships. There are some interfaith religious, interfaith, organizations are there, very, very helpful. So overall, although I'm not, a philosopher, that they're very knowledgeable in historically in all those things, and also I haven't studied, Judaism, Hinduism, or Christianity, Sikhism, or any of these world major religious traditions. I've read a few books here and there, but listening from those great teachers, different spiritual traditions teachers, reading some of those important books here and there. So philosophically, there are some major differences. Generally speaking, Abrahamic religious tradition, like Judaism, Christianity, and also, in India, some of those Hinduism. There's this group of world major religious traditions believe some form of ultimate creator or supreme, whatever term that you use, God, other, all the other terms. So there's some kind of creator. At the end of the day, it is the creator or God will make the decisions. But then there are other world religious traditions. In here, Buddhism and several other ancient Indian spiritual traditions do not have that kind of concept, some form of, supreme being or a creator. So that is major in philosophical difference. But the goal or the aim is same, to serve human beings. This is just brief to say before I make this quotation, to explain that I quoted just a few minutes ago. So these two lines, Manikura Tabe Lamdeki, it's saying, I here refers to the Buddha, the historical Buddha, Manikura, that means to you, then to his followers, Manikura. Tabe Lam, Tabe is liberation, moksha in Sanskrit, or liberation, Tabe, Lam, path, the way, or the means and methods to lead to the liberation, làm tuyên, show or teach, mà cho nó thật về lòng tuyên. Key, this last syllable is important. Saying, explain you the path or the means and methods you to experience the liberation from suffering and origins of suffering. So the next line, Tharpa, here refers to the liberation. Rang la, rang means oneself, rang le, Tharpa rang la. Whether the liberation is going to experience or not, it is entirely upon yourselves. Ragle, Tavaranga Ragle, Shenjimin, liberation, moksha cannot be given, cannot be delivered by the others. That others including the Buddha himself. So these two lines that the Buddha said to his followers is something on the one hand it is very great relief to say whether individuals are going to experience liberation or not. It is entirely upon the individuals, depend on the individuals. But on the other hand, particularly people like me, I don't want to do that much. Liberation should be delivered upon me by the Buddha. It seems very disappointing. So it is, so people who like to work hard to experience liberation, based on the teachings, that Buddha and subsequent Buddhist teachers, those great teachers have given, then it is responsibility is upon one's own shoulders. Whether oneself going to experience liberation or not. It is not the Buddha, it is not those great beings. They will not, make the judgment. Judgment is upon oneself, by ourselves. If we, apply those means and methods taught by the Buddha and subsequent, those great teachers, that whether Buddha, the Buddha, even if Buddha didn't want to give us the liberation will be within us. So that is something, this quotation, and at the same text, a very similar meaning. Another verse which I'm going to quote, first two lines. Very similar, the meaning. In Tibetan it says this: Dangi dagi gönyi shene sushi gondoju. Oneself is one's own protector savior. Tani taki gui. Shene sushi gondo yu. Who else be our protector or savior? So this is again, these lines tell us the once we decided to follow the teachings of the Buddha and subsequent those great teachers' teachings to overcome dukkha, suffering, and to sort it out the origins of the dukkha, and to experience liberation from these two, then it is very much, upon our own shoulders, not our own responsibilities. So that useful, helpful to reflect on these lines along the first and the second day, Monday and the Tuesday, the morning first session, I to share with you, saying that current human existence, it's current, the life that we have got, so-called, according to the Buddhist and the terminology, precious human life. The life that has a great potential to fulfill one's own long-term, what you call the aim or the goals. Not just to fulfill, to obtain or to get, our temporary needs, food, shelter, medicines, friendships, all those mundane needs. But if we utilize properly, fully, this human existence, the life that we have got, based on this life, we can do much, much more than the mundane that we need. And so if that is the case, then the meaning of these two, these few lines that are quoted, saying, it is our own hand whether going to experience liberation or not. The Buddha and those great beings can do to teach, to explain, to show the path, the means and methods. So very, very, useful to reflect on, contemplate, think. Another beautiful two lines that I would like to say here is from this great Indian master, I think late 6th, early 7th century, great Indian master who spent since many years in Bodh Gaya, as well as not very far from here, Nalanda, great institutions in a very early time, Nalanda. His name this great Indian master name is Shantideva Shivala. He had written two, that as far as we know, as far as we have currently that we can read, study, two very, very, amazing texts had written. And one here is called in Sanskrit Bodhisattva Avatar, in Tibetan quite often in English translated Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It has 10 chapters. And in the first chapter, there's a verse, and I will not say the entire verse, but I will say the first 2 lines, which is directly connected to the point of what I'm discussing with regard to this human existence. Mi trula tenesu, tumechu cheneto. So he used a beautiful analogies, I think, during his time. Say, for example, in order to cross during the raining season, in order to cross the river next to the temple, Narayana river, and there are several rivers. So during the raining time, those days might be quite a big river. So it might be quite difficult to cross because there might be very few bridges. I remember when I was coming here, 1974, my first visit, I didn't see any, the crossing bridge. Only all the way down near the Gaya, there's one bridge that was also a very tiny, small bridge. So the analogy is this: in order to cross these kind of big river, what we need, relatively safely to cross is with a boat. So that's the analogy he used. This human existence that we have, it is like the boat to cross from the one shore to the other shore. The shore where we are here, in an unenlightened nature, in that kind of shore, that kind of river band, to take to the other side, which is here referring to liberation. So very, very beautiful analogies. This human existence that we have got right here now, it has that kind of potential individually to take us from current unenlightened existence on this side of the river to cross to the other side of the river, which is the liberation or enlightenment. So, these are quite, for many of us, enlightenment is long, long, long way. But what we can understand, what we can, experience right here now, based on this human existence, with this body and the mind, very rich, sophisticated emotions and thoughts, we can do amazing things to ourselves and to others. And we can tell that, as I mentioned the other day, from the outer development, what we have achieved. Not only the modern, look back, the 1,000 years back, there are lots of amazing things that human beings have done, not just externally, but also internally. Some of these great spiritual traditions, some of these, deep philosophical views, thoughts, currently that we know. Maybe there might be many others which already now disappeared, like the early Greek in the West, and here in the East, like many great Indian, whether the area current what we call India is called Indian or not, but in this area, in China, that area, there were many, many great, the inner sort of the philosophical views, thoughts, movement were there. So that's what based on human life, human existence, with this human minds, those are that were achieved. And we are on the same planet. As I mentioned the other day, we are, at the place, if the current or the main temple is the exact place where the historical Buddha Gautama sat and experienced enlightenment. So we were not very far from that place physically, and as I mentioned the other day, I don't think historical Buddha has these funny hands or these funny all those things. Might be very similar to what we have. Although in the scriptures there are lots of nice, praise and so forth, but if we were here during the Buddha's time, a tall, relatively tall guy, so that is what here that we need to know, need to remind ourselves, that particularly when we face challenges, life is not all the time up, though we want it, we want our lives all the time up there, high, successful, joyful, healthy, good company, good friendship. But in reality, life is not like that. I always say this, life comes with a package. In that package, there are many goodies. Also, there are many difficulties. And that is what we should, bear in mind. If we sort of aware of that kind of nature of life, then when we face challenges, whatever that might be, mental challenges, physical challenges, the financial challenges, friendship challenges, relationship challenges, they won't be short. If we all the time think and expect, life will be perfect, all the goodies, then when the challenge appears in reality, we will face challenges. Though we try all our best. I tease some of my friends when I was in UK. Quite often, if you go to family's house and one of the kitchen's cupboard, usually next to the cupboard where you boil the water, kettles, just above that cupboard, minimum, I would guarantee, in the family, maybe individual might be very different. Minimum, there might be 5, 6, 7 bottles of food supplement. And, on top of that, relatively compared to the other, difficult countries, food is excellent. But still need food supplement, but still they get ill. They get cold very often, flu very often. Now I heard winter flu jab only when I get to West. But like that. But still they get flu. So that is the physical reality. And same in the mental reality. So it is useful and helpful to be realistic, to be to be aware of these things, good positive things based on this human existence, its potential, and try to utilize as much as we can. But at the same time, this existence is not perfect. We will face challenges, difficulties. And when the challenges and difficulties come, be ready, at least mentally be ready to deal with that. So that, in Tibetan we have the expression, when we face challenges, pull your hands. It will not work, out of despair. Pull hands. That's a last resource. I'm not suggesting you to do that. But it is the preparation, at least in the mental preparation, which is useful to do. Okay, so point this general, my blah blah is this, that once you have selected, once you have chosen the teachings of the Buddha as one's own spiritual path, then there is a big responsibility upon ourselves to work with the teachings that are given. And of course, it is not saying work with the teachings that are given with a blind faith, through the experiment, through the analysis, through the trainings, then work with it. That is really something helpful to know, helpful to know. Otherwise, we may end up all the time saying mantra. One day, the liberation will just drop in our head, and that's it. Okay. So today's our main reading or the discussion with you on the subject of the nature of the mind, which is our main subject. I would like to continue from yesterday's, the topics. Yesterday's topic, our main topic, was to understand valid cognition, valid cognition, and mistaken cognition. And in the valid cognition, here, in the sense, a valid purpose of having valid cognition is really to understand what are the right things and events to fulfill one's own, long-term goal or the aim. And that is the purpose of learning, trying to have a valid cognition, and which I mentioned yesterday. So today, added on a little bit, this is within the valid cognition, there are two kinds or two types. One is called, the Muslim in Tibetan, Muslim Tsering, direct valid cognition, direct valid cognition. So in other words, valid cognition, valid minds, which is direct to the objects without any mediations, direct valid cognition. And then another one, which we are going to talk a little bit more here, is inferential, valid cognition, inferential, through reasons, through the reasons, using the reasons as a mediation, then to understand, to realize, to cognize the object or the object correctly. So that is the second one, inferential, valid cognition. For us, the second one is extremely helpful and useful. If you remember, the other day, I shared this point saying the things and events that the object that we would like to know in the Buddhist literature, they are divided into three categories: obvious, hidden, and very hidden. If you recall that. Now here, particularly the hidden object, hidden in the sense objects that are not obvious for us to cognize, to realize as they are. Even they are in front of us, within us, around us, but for us, difficult to cognize or realize as they are, and that is the hidden object. So means and methods to understand that levels or that categories of the objects, then we are rely on reasons, or technically called inferential, reasons, which we use very often in our everyday lives. We use the reasons And we have that kind of ability as a human being to, to rationalize what is what, how it's going to work, what, for what purpose, and so forth. We use reasons in our lives, for our daily necessities to obtain, to require. Whether those reasons are accurate or not, then that is the thing, And here, in the Buddhist, those two great teachers that are mentioned the other days again and again, Deknak and Dhammakirti, they structured, structured, the reasons, how to apply, reasons to understand those hidden phenomena. And it is quite often called Buddhist logic, and along the Buddhist logic, Buddhist epistemology. And this kind of means and methods exist in the Western, the tradition. Of course, slightly different, and particularly quite big different compared to the modern logic. Modern logic is very much based on mathematics, but it seems in the West, before the modern logic is utilized, what logic is used in the West to understand, to calculate, to rationalize, seems very similar, relatively similar to the Indian logics, the Indian logics. Ancient Indian logics, to form within our consciousness, within our mind, to form the reasons to understand those hidden phenomena. It is not just Buddhists, those great teachers, in a very early stage, non-Buddhist ancient Indian spiritual traditions also had, very sophisticated, very well-established logic. In fact, there is a particular traditions, not Buddhist traditions, but the non-Buddhist tradition. In Tibetan, it's called Rinpoche. It's called in Sanskrit.
I don't remember the Sanskrit.
Rinpoche. Nyaya. That tradition has a very, very sophisticated logical system. And the Buddhist logical system. And Nyayas and other non-Buddhist Indian philosophical schools also have, but mostly sophisticated and is from this particular tradition. They have this for generations, the argument between. And through that argument exchange had benefited for the both traditions to refine, to refine and refine and refine. So this for the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it comes from those great Indian Buddhist logicians or epistemologists, and those logicians like Digna around the 4th, 5th century, Dhammakirti's 6th or 7th, 6th, then Dhammakirti's students later, and the 10th, 11th century great logician, Indian master, who came to Tibet, Shankarashta, his student Kamalashila. So these knowledge, how to form, how to structure, reasons to understand those hidden phenomena, which is having exchange between the different traditions in India. So that is something useful. Two things that I'm saying. In our day-to-day life, we use reasons. That's the one thing. What I usually teach my friends in the UK, we use reasons to get a good mortgage company. Or you say we use reasons to have a good insurance company, to calculate, to rationalize, to discuss, to talk to the expertise, lawyers, and those are the ones here. Rationality is used, reason is used. But sometimes in the simple things, sometimes very habitually, for example, here in the summer, going out, to going out, you should have I was told I should put a scarf to cover entire my head, not just head, but also my ears, because hot air is very, very painful. So once, twice, that reason is given, I use that. But then even, gradually, as soon as I start to, get ready, try to get that scarf to put on my head. I use reason. If I don't have that scarf, if I don't cover my knees, I will have trouble. That's the reason. So we use reasons in our everydays, but that kind of ability is not explored further than our everyday survival. As I just said, the most typical or most important area that we use, I'm talking about in the West, is to find a good insurance coverage any that much further than that. So here we're talking about certain things and events or certain phenomena that are very, very useful for us to cognize, realize, but currently we don't have the tools to cognize, to realize. And that is here very deliberately, very intentionally structuring the reasons. And as I briefly mentioned yesterday, in that case, very similar to those modern great scientists, what they do. Find some kind of what you call your points, what you want to prove, or what you want to disprove. Then argue. In the philosophical field, argue with the reasons. In the chemistry or the physics, measure, cut, chop, look at in the microscope, play with the different what you call the chemicals, then see, then find this conclusion. So you have a thesis. And this thesis needs to be proved by the reason. Isn't it? So here that is what it comes. Those hidden phenomena. Other day when I asked hidden phenomena, somebody says ghost, somebody says impermanence, that's fine. Say take it impermanence. Impermanence. Or yesterday, if you remember, in the first session I made this quotation, mainly from the Buddha, first from the Buddha, then from these great Tibetan teachers, how he prays to the Buddha, because Buddha taught dependent origination. Do you remember that? Mm. So, nature of dependent origination. Particularly in a more subtle level. We know, child depends on mother. This cloth to stay at that level depend on this table, and so forth. That we know. But we, from the Buddhist teachers' point of view, we don't know the deeper layers of dependent origination. Very, very helpful to know. Not just theoretically, but also emotionally. Understand the nature of dependence, dependent arising. So these are the theses. The theses. Now the reason need to form. Argument need to form. Then try to prove or disprove the thesis. If I say that this body, this line is impermanent, or if I say this line, this body is momentarily changing, not static. Momentariness. Then I need to prove. Must have a reason to prove that. Or if I say, no, this body was here yesterday, and this person was here Monday, we were here since Monday together, shouldn't be impermanent. If this is impermanent, how it could be? It was there on Monday and still there. If you disagree with that, disprove that with the reasons. So reason is here the means and methods to cultivate the realization, valid cognition, on the subject or on the object which are hidden. And then when we form the reasons, that kind of structure, there's a thesis. We're using the applying the reasons. There must be close connection between the thesis and the reasons that we, put forward. Without any connection, the reason will not prove or disprove the thesis. Sometimes it is called predicate, the middle one. There is a subject or in this case the body or life. That is where we are arguing, and the predicate or the thesis is impermanent. That's the predicate. That is the thesis. Now bring the reasons. And the reason that we put forward should have a close connection with the thesis. Otherwise, difficult. So like that, in French or cognition. So that is here useful to know. We have a means and methods to understand some of those important topics or the subjects or the phenomena, whatever we use in terms of the label. We have the ability, and those reasons that we utilize in our everyday lives, but we don't utilize some of those profound phenomena to understand. And this is not just for the people who like to play with the philosophical views. It is very, very useful, helpful for the ordinary people like us, to learning to form the reasons. That way it will, I won't say deliberate, it will help us to really to get to understand some of the deeper meanings. Otherwise, entire our life, as long as we come to understand some of the deeper meanings, we will always back down. If we always back down, we say, then we will not make that much progress. To make progress, we hold, have a challenge. Then, to utilize some of those important, helpful means and methods were used by these great teachers to understand some of the very profound reality. For example, our main topic is nature of mind. And so far we said, based on these great teachings, we said the nature of the mind is, by nature it is luminously clear. And it has its function, knowing, cognizing. That's what we have got so far. So it is said, once we understand, once we realize, once we cognize that the nature of the mind, which is luminosity, it is said that those great teachers, it is said there is a tremendous sense of peace. Much, much, much better than some of those Starbucks coffees. When I was in London, there are certain things that I love to do, worldly things. Not certain, there are many, but anyway. One thing which came into my head as soon as I said, okay, once you realize the luminosity nature of the mind, there's some tremendous sense of peace, immediately come into my head. It is compatible with the Starbucks latte? That's coming to my head. Because when I was in London, I had many great friends, but two great friends. One sadly already passed away some years ago. The other still struggling. Yeah. And this guy was still alive. We are very, very good friends, close friends. He was black cab driver. The London has this famous black cab. And he has a black cab. He's renting from the company, and then he had to pay every week, certain amounts of money. So, he has a daughter, and when I met him, I think his daughter was maybe already left home. I can't remember exactly. So he's single. In that case, I found it very easy to rely on or to associate. So otherwise, sometimes some of my friends who have a family is sometimes difficult. One is Buddhist, one is not. What's going on? Not easy to depend on. So Steve, I'm saying his name. Anyway. So, because he had a black hat and he hasn't got, the wife or a partner, and so he had a very good work ethics. He works very early morning, maybe around 4, and he goes to those big famous hotels, sit there, and he could get 1 or 2 trips to London, central London, to Heathrow. Then he's happy with that money. He will not go, he will come to the center, come to the center, and so very nice. And so not every day, but very often me and him and our other friends who passed away some years ago, occasionally we'd go with his taxi and go mainly to Starbucks. We all love to have a cup of latte. So because he has a black card, we don't need to worry about where we're going to park. For the black card, there's a special parking place. Doesn't need to pay anything. So we park there and we go latte and charge. So, that comes to my head. So I just share with you this, some of my London life. Anyway, the point what I'm saying is this, to our mental stage, to experience some of these, deep sense of peace, deep sense of joy. I will not use the term bliss, which is sometimes not very nice word. Bliss is very, for me, it's very tacky. You know, the word in the but you know, deep sense of joy, sense of fulfillment. Many of these great teachers have said, realizing, understanding some of these deeper nature of phenomena, that will brings deep sense of joy, fulfillment. So that for us at this stage, our sense consciousnesses do not have the capacity to reveal for us deeper levels of reality. So only tools that we can cultivate to understand, to cognize some of these deeper nature of reality is initially through inferential, through the reasons. Through the reasons. Apply the reasons, then once we manage to, build that logic, reason that we set, and the thesis that we try to understand, to prove, once the connection between the thesis and the reason are met properly. Or then sometimes one of my teachers used to say, watertight. Even Buddha comes in front of you to say, this reason is wrong. You're still able to argue with the confidence. So that is here. Then once the thesis is proved to our minds, not to the third person, but to our very imperative, very experientially, then that will make huge difference. There's a tremendous sense of, joy by realizing some of these deeper nature of reality, such as impermanence. It is said in the sutras, many occasions, realizing the nature of impermanence is, and another term the term is used, once that these understandings gone into more deeper level, then there's a sense of subject and object, that duality is not there. Currently, all our thoughts, emotions, they all have this duality, something to the experience out there, and then my mind's here to experience it. But when this subject and object get very close, duality start to minimize this, and eventually to despair the duality, then there's a tremendous sense of relaxation. So now here the point what I'm making here is learning to utilize that our human, the mind, applying reasons to form some, to have an important thesis in life to prove and to have this, to form reasons, which is very, very useful. So in other words, inferential, valid cognition, inferential, valid, consciousness. So in the valid consciousness, there are two kinds, which are repeating that. Direct valid cognition. In a more simple example, as I mentioned yesterday, it is such as our five sense consciousnesses. My eye consciousness, seeing, perceiving shapes, colors of this tablecloth. That is direct valid consciousness. But more important is for us learning to have inferential valid cognition, which is not direct, but it is a very, very useful tool to have in order to understand some of those hidden phenomena that we are not aware of, that we haven't realized. So to understand some of those hidden phenomena, the nature of the reality, then to understand that, to have the inferential valid cognition, and to do that, then learn how to structure that that logical formula, which is quite useful. Usually in the Buddhist term, it comes into three parts: the subject, the predicate, and the reason. So in the example, the subject, in this case, subject is my body or my life. That is the subject. Predicate is impermanence. That's the predicate. Reason, then I'm not going to say you should form. There must be a reason. So there are three parts. When the subject, in this case body, my body, and the impermanence, which is the predicate, when these two come together, that's the thesis to prove. That is the thesis to prove. Another important thing is, what we need is the reason and the predicate, which is in the middle, must have a close relationship. Must have a close relationship. So in the Buddhist, these which are called the logic texts, the reason is explained in two forms. I will say this, then we'll have a good reasons to have a tea. So the first relationship is called causal relationship. The predicate in the middle and the reason at the end should have a causal effect relationship. what is stated in the reason must be the result of what is stated in the predicate. So these two have a cause and effect relationship. In some other cases, these two, in the predicate and what is stated in the reason, should have technically what is called is the one entity relationship. What is stated in the predicate and what is going to stay, what you're going to put in the reason, logic, these two must have one entity relationship. So those are the main components to form a logic. Technically called subject, predicate, reason. Subject and predicate together is thesis, and the predicate and what is stated in the reason must have close relationship. And with regard to the close relationship, there are two kinds. One is cause and effect relationship. The other one is one entity relationship. So now we'll have tea. the previous main session, the main topic that I was trying to explain to you is how to, or importance of having a influential, valid cognitions, and in order to understand some of the important hidden phenomena that we often get wrong, or that we often even don't think about, or they get confused, and so forth. So some of those hidden phenomena, which are useful, helpful to understand, to get correctly, then the tool for us is having inferential cognition, valid cognition. So that is the main point I was making in the previous session. And along that, I've explained, very simple how in the Buddhist, the logic, inferential logic is form, structure. That is what the main point. Of course, the subject itself is, to study that more than a year. It will take to really to learn this properly, how to apply the Buddhist logic to understand some of those hidden phenomena. But what I've done in the previous session is just sow a seed in your mental continuum. Would say in Buddhist tradition, or modern may say in your brain. Not chips, but small seeds in your brain. What is useful here is, that there's a nice, the verse relation to the things that we learn, things that we learn through listening from others is something, though it's not fully our own knowledge, our own understanding, we learn from the other people's knowledge or understanding, but still that is very precious knowledge. And it says like this: Terpa timo mesel jane kubalasu mite noticho. So among the treasuries, or among the precious things that we have, among those, the most precious or valuable object, which cannot be taken away by others, because our external, those precious things can be taken away by others. Burglar will come, crash into our whatever, take away, or what you call the pickpocket will come, take away, or all those horrible things may happen to our precious collection. but knowledge that we learn, that we get through the listening, in this case through the listening, those knowledge cannot be stored, cannot be taken away by others. In that sense, those, the knowledge or understanding that we gain from the listening, from the reading, from the other people, still though it's not our own knowledge, in a sense, not really cultivated by ourselves, but still in the early stage, but still those are very precious knowledge, because nobody can take it from us. So in other words, the knowledge that we gain, like, we're at the point that we are discussing, like the light dispel the darkness. Like in the evening when you come to the temple, until you light switch on the light, you won't see that much all those beautiful statues and beautiful paintings. Once the light is switched on, you will see like that. What we have heard through the listening, through the reading, the knowledge that we gain, it is like the light switching on to dispel the darkness. The knowledge that we get from the listening, reading, though that knowledge or those knowledge, I don't know if it's plural or not, in English it's quite difficult to understand whether knowledge is plural or singular. So that, never be stolen by the thieves, by the burglars. So that means very, very, unique and precious object, precious things. That they are nice, very beautiful, the stories. Some of those Tibetans, previous generations, who after Chinese invasion, many monks were put into prison. And when they, after 1979, 80s, the Chinese government applied a new sort of policy to release many of those, prisoners. And when they come over here, India, to visit those holy places, in some cases to meet His Holiness Dalai Lama, and when they tell the story, many stories, particularly those learned monks, many story is related to that. They're saying, the most helpful, things while they were in prison for years and years and years, is what they have learned in the monastery. But, expressing compassion, love to those prison guards, the developing sense of, genuine tolerance, patience, though very, very hard. Like that. So what you call our material objects, or the precious material things that we have, very important to have, particularly lay people. I'm not saying don't have it, very important. And family, you have family, you have children, you have grandchildren to look after, all those, very important to have. But they are not easy to keep, not easy to keep. There are lots of hindrances. But these inner knowledge, the inner treasure that we have, those knowledge, those deep, cultivated those important inner knowledge. They are very, very easy to keep. Very, very helpful when we face challenges, difficulties. So these two lines are very, very nice and very often quote in the Buddhist circle. So point what I'm making is you might be thinking about, I may say a little bit further on the Buddhist logic. So I'm not going to say that much. I'm just sow a seed. Either you're in your method continue. Sorry. Third Timo says Demi Kumbulaso Kumasivarwa Kumbulaso Miket Nordichon. So I've just sowed the seed and you can explore. Because if I start to say on this, then you may need to rebook your air ticket or train ticket. Anyway, so like that. Now then, relation to, not directly related to the Buddhist logic, but have a connection with this, which I mentioned earlier, some of the hidden phenomena that we need to help to explore through the reasons and some of the sutras and also some of the commentaries, Indian masters' commentaries. And there are these, including the reasons that we are just discussing. There are four what they call rationalities, four forms of rationalities. Sometimes quite useful to know that when we are curious, or some people are quite inquisitive or curious, want to know and further and further and further. And sometimes, you'll reach, we will reach a stage there isn't that much to rationalize any further, because that is how it is. Like in mathematics, 2 plus 2 is 4. There's no any other reason. Is there? I don't know. Maybe I was told there's no other reasons. 2 plus 2 is 4. Is there any reason? People who have learned modern science or modern mathematics. That is how it is. And that is how we, agree 2 plus 2 is 4. Commonly we all agree that that's maybe even in the physics it might be working like that. I don't know. Don't ask me. I haven't studied. But we all agree with that, even in the different languages or different culture. 2 plus 2 is 4. May not use the same language, but that's how. So there are these things, and therefore to understand when we try to understand through the reasons, and at certain stage, we may not have any further reasons to put forward to understand why, how, all those things. So in that case, in the Buddhist literatures, they form a group of these, which I will say this. It is titled saying 4 forms of rationality. The first one is, rationality of nature. First, I will go through the list, then I will try to explain a little bit of the meaning. Rationality of nature. Second one is called rationality of the functions, and functionality, I don't know exactly which word. And the third is rationality of dependence, and fourth is rationality of inferential proof. So our previous session main topic is the last one, the rationality of inferential proof. That is the reasons or the logics that we apply to understand some of those hidden phenomena. And particularly in this case, some of those previous 3 rationalities, the rationality of nature, rationality of function or functionality and function, rationality of dependency. So those previous 3 rationalities, which are hidden particularly in a more deeper level, to understand for us what we have to have, what is useful to have, is the fourth one, which is rationality of the inferential proof. So those are the 4 forms of rationalities. This English word rationality in Tibetan, Rinpoche, it has a connotation. Rinpoche, it has several connotations. It depends on the context. In here, the Rinpoche in Tibetan, it is more like a saying, that is how it is. That is how it is. And that's why the term Rinpoche in this context, and I think in English, how they translated rationality. I have no idea what other words to be used. So in Tibetan, just in case, because it's recording in the future, people may want to read, want to listen, blah blah. So in Tibetan, Rinpoche. The first one is Chunigirpa. Here, rationality of nature, Chunigirpa. Second one is Chawachevripa, rationality of function. Third one is the Döviripa, rationality of dependence. And fourth one is Tepukiripa, rationality of the inferential proof, inferential proof. So those are the four. So the first one, rationality of nature. As I just used earlier, that 2 plus 2 is 4. That is how it is. There's not any further reason or explanation to say that why 2 plus 2 is 4. Or in other words, when for us, a little bit further deeper level, when all the causes and conditions are complete, when all the causes and conditions are complete, the result is inevitable, definite. If you say, why? That's the nature. That's the nature. It's not made by the Buddha, or it's not made by any. That's how it is. When all the causes and conditions are met, result is definite. Externally as well as internally. It is not just only external things and events are like that, not to the internal in the sense related to the living beings, and even a little bit further, our feelings, pain, pleasure, joy, happiness, to when the causes and conditions are complete for the happiness will come, will experience, inevitable. And it is the same for the other side. And that's the nature. There's no any further explanation. In Tibetan, it is called Tsering.
Rinpoche, can I ask you, is it just from the perspective of the mind that we are trying to catch the result of continuous events? Isn't it just from the point of the mind that we are choosing to see the result? If there couldn't be end if there is a continuous event of causes and effects. Even the end is the cause of another event.
Okay, so say for example, of course, when we go to the dining hall, when the foods are in our plate, when we eat, there are these processes. One result is when you register the calls, when the people who are organizing, all these are causes. You can have a Friday good lunch. When you have the good lunch, that is the result. But after having good lunch, you may have a good sleep. That is also the result. Result may go through. We are talking about the one given result. That result may bring another result. That's another case. Just one given a thing which comes into being due to the causes and conditions. When all the causes and conditions, that include the time, that includes time. So that's what if I quoted your question correctly, that's how it is. It is not mentally seeing it, mentally thinking it, it is just simply happening. When the causes and conditions are met, result is indefinite. is what you call the rationality of nature. There are many other things. I've just given an example. So you can say the apple falls due to the gravity. So there's this, inevitable, because gravity pulls down. Is there any reason further than that? Well, you can explain all the gravity, strength, all those things. You can explain the earth, then it is in a core, there's this power and so on and so forth. But it is the gravity. So that is how he, in our everyday life, importance and not importance, mundane or something more than mundane, there are these realities taking place. Because that's out of nature. Not somebody's punishment, not accidentally, but out of nature. When the conditions are met, of course, the result is inevitable. That's how it is. Okay? That's the first thing. We can have questions later. Now the second one is rationality of function. So on the basis of that rationality of nature, then there is a functional, what you call the reality. Cause function. The function of the cause to bring the result. That kind of dependence, that kind of nature. And many of us, we can understand, through the bring, for example, one of my examples is my late mother, who was not educated and illiterate in her early age, but she learned to read later, illiterate, but she still knows very clearly, because we were a farmer, had a small land to grow the crops. She's very, very clear, if we do not prepare small land properly, we will not get good harvest. That is, that kind of functionality, even though, very uneducated lady, but knows that. So here, in our everyday lives, particularly in our world, in our inner heart, our thoughts, our feelings, our wishes, our yearnings, our concerns, and what we experience in the world. Some are very dramatic, some are very subtle, some are very big, some are very individual, some are very collective. They have this functional realities through the causes, conditions are put together. Then there's a result. That's functional. That working in that way. Some of the things that we are experiencing right here and now, the causes, the conditions may started for a long, long, long time ago. Particularly what you're experiencing collectively. Say, for example, environmental difficulties, global warming, or current, lots of wars. That what we're experiencing collectively many of these, the current the challenges, as we know, the scientists may say, historical people may point, or the social sort of science may say, so this, but in certain cases it's just immediate. What we experience, joy, happiness, just immediate. Creative causes and the result happened. But there's this functional reality. It is on the basis of, the first rational reality, rational nature, which is existent nature, how things exist. That's how it is. That's what we say. Extremely useful, to probe, to think, to reflect on. And so the second rationality, then the third one is rationality of dependency. In our world, sounds a little bit abstract, but many of they are in our daily lives, individually, collectively, and also in the outside world. Things and events exist in a fashion of dependency. For example, from my side, when I look towards you, I'll say, I'm looking towards you. Your people say, oh, we are looking towards you. So it's just where I am and where you are. It is not just abstract, it is reality, it is happening, it is functioning, it is making some, feelings or creating some. But that is how. So another one is to say this table. The table has many parts. The top, the leg, all those things. They all are dependent. To say high or low, high, existence of high is very much dependent on existence of low. Same in inner feeling, to say happy. Feeling of happy is very much related, dependent on feeling of unhappy. So there's this nature or reality of dependency. And these are not just abstract. These make our lives one way or another different. How we relate to them, how we perceive them, how we understand them. That way our individual lives, collective lives make a difference. Better we understand as they are. In this case, they are in the sense of dependence, nature, dependence, reality. If we understand as they are, will not suffer. many of our sufferings or challenges that we face from the Buddhist point of view, not seeing, not understanding things and events as they are. So this rationality of dependency. So now, all these earlier three rationality, and the last one is rationality of, what you call the inferential proof. So what he's saying here is, that through the application of reason, then we can understand some of those hidden phenomena. And in that sense, in this case, there are lots of reasons to be explained, to be applied, to prove that particularly in those previous three rationalities. So if I, so far I mentioned like this relatively in a simple form. But if I add a little bit on particularly the first rationality of nature, and also the second rationality of function from the Buddhist teachings point of view. Here the first one, rationality of nature, related to our own main topic. If you ask why consciousness is why consciousness nature is luminosity. That's how it is. That's how it's nature. There isn't any further explanation. I want to tell you a nice story. This is very true happened, and with one of our great Tibetan teachers in previous generation, one of those great Tibetan teachers came to West. I think sometime in the early 80s or late 70s, and so gave like this kind of blah blah. And of course, the Westerners, they want to ask all sorts of questions. So there were several questions related to like this, why the consciousness is luminosity? Why? So the master didn't get to explain other reasons. Of course, he didn't say at the teachings, but when finished the teachings and go to dinner, a lunch, then with other the Tibetan teachers, there were a group of teachers I was told, and he's a great teacher, great master, well known, and so he raised that question at the lunch table. Why this person asked very strange question? Why? He needed a good smack. That's what a very joyful teacher. Very, had a lots of very scholar, very practitioner. But I heard he said that. Yeah, it's very annoying. Keep asking why. Need a good smack. So anyway, so from the Buddhist point of view, then another example here is the emptiness, shunyata. All things, events are I'm going to throw all those targets, okay? Don't ask me, otherwise you may get smacked. So, that is the nature of, and the reality of nature. There's no other explanation why, from the Buddhist point of view, why all things and events are absent or empty of intrinsic nature, inherent nature. That's how it is. Another example. So then, related to the second one, reality of function or functionality, rationality of function. So according to the teachings of the Buddha, all my experiences, joy, happiness, fulfillment, the pain, frustration, challenges, difficulties, all those experiences, and including this body, and these are the result of the causes. They are here, right here and now. These are the result of the causes. And for me, though I'm talking about right here now, I experience this body, physical body, and there are lots of thoughts, lots of emotions right here and now. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant, and so forth. These are the results of some of the causes and conditions that I have created. Reality of function. But I have no clear idea at all, what are the causes. What are the causes? And if I don't know which term is used, which verb should use. If I do not believe my previous life, so what I'm talking about causes only this lifetime. So the things what I'm experiencing right here now, the causes and conditions are created within these 60-something years. In terms of if I put a time frame. So but in many of these causes and conditions, I don't know. Very hidden, very obscure, even to myself, let alone you people. You don't know at all. Many of you we met just this time. But functionality, rationality of function, that is how, that nature should apply here, but I may guess a little bit at home. I have a grey hair. I may have guessed a little bit why I have the want to go back to London. Or I may have a little bit all those things. I may guess a little bit causes and conditions why I have this result right here and now. But I don't know that detail. Even some of the causes that are created in this lifetime. So these are hidden. So I'm talking about from the Buddhist point of view, which is called law of cause and effect. karma. It is very, we can know a little bit in that level, karma, but I don't know all the details of my own karma, the result of what I'm experiencing here. So there are these things, quite useful to have these things, in our knowledge. Then we can, probe, we can analyze, we can critically examine. And on top of that, as we had discussion, to understand more depth, more detail, more precise form and logic, and to try to prove ourselves. Okay, so now we have 15 minutes to have one or two questions. People would like to put questions. Yeah.
Actually, it's not a question, but I want to understand that I heard you correctly. You said happiness depends on unhappiness. Did I hear you correctly?
You're perfectly. Perfectly.
So I need to be unhappy to be happy.
Yes, otherwise you don't understand what is happy. Don't you think? Not only linguistically, but through the experience. We have in Tibetan nice expression of that. This is used very often. I will use that expression. Expression is this. If you haven't tasted bitterness, you will never appreciate sweetness. It's very, very nice expression we use when we encounter very, the tough person. So then you will say, oh, now you understand it is tough person. He is tough, or he or she is tough person. But you will not understand he or she is tough only when you see those gentle person. So that's a nice one. I mean, it's not just linguistically. It is how it is. Our experience even in the experiential level, to say joy, fulfillment, not in the linguistic. You have to have some other part of that. Otherwise, difficult to appreciate joy. Any other questions or suggestions?
First, I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. When you're talking about the four kinds of rationale, you're talking about the first one, which is the rationale of nature. Would it be right to say, I think you said it, that's the rationale where that's just the way it is, because that's the nature of it?
Yeah.
So how do you, please don't hit me. How do you know that's true? Because, how do you know that's true?
That's true.
Because, it might just be easy to say, okay, 1 + 1 = 2. That's just the way it is. But then, could that not just be used for anything that one doesn't understand? You could say, why is this the way it is? Like a parent might say, a child might ask their parent, like, why is the sky blue? And the parent might just say, that's just the way it is. And that could be then seen as a rationale of nature. But how do you know it's truly nature and not just an easy explanation for something, right? Like you mentioned, the nature of mind is luminous clarity. To me, from an outside perspective, that could be just like hearing, the sky is blue just because of the way it is. So how do you differentiate those two, if you understand what I'm trying to get at?
I mean, certain things that we can explain with a few steps. But then after the few steps, that's it. Then you can say that's how it is. For example, if the child asks the mom, why food is hot, she can say, oh, there's a chill. There's one explanation. But if the child asks another question, why chili is hot? What she is going to say? That's how it is. I mean, then another little bit scientist, a scientist who know these chemicals may have other explanation. Why chili is hot, not the sugar is not hot. Going through the different chemicals. But again, to these scientists, why these chemicals come together is hot, not these chemicals to make sweet come together, not hot. Instead of hot chili, sweet, then he or she will say, oh, that's how it is.
To me, it sounds like there's a wall, and I'm like, what? Why is that wall there? And it's
Why is not wall there? That's my question. What's wrong to have that kind of wall? Does it bother you?
I think so. I just can't think of a good follow-up to that. But it's something I'll have to think about. If I have another follow-up, I'll ask you.
I think it
Yeah,
bothers.
that's it.
I think it bothers him because of brainwashing.
Okay. That's what I did.
Sure. Yeah.
Brainwashing.
Brainwashing.
Can you explain?
Sorry.
If she can explain.
Brainwashing is a term for ideological.
Sorry.
Manipulation.
Now you are brainwashing him.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Western brainwashing.
Brainwashing is like communism is bad, or.
Is it bad?
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that in some parts of the world, people are brainwashed to think that without investigating whether it might not be bad or vice versa. I think that's what it was.
Okay. Questions? Then I have two questions.
Just trying to understand the first one again, the rationality of nature. I think at some point you may have said that the first three are hidden, first three rationales are hidden, and then we need the fourth one to actually make sense of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then you also mentioned reality of nature. That all things are empty.
Your battery is running out. Yeah.
My battery is running out. I think I'm just trying to understand what is hidden in the rationality of nature if all things are empty or in itself. So is it the ideology of emptiness that's hidden and you're trying to understand?
So if I got your question correctly, according to the Buddhist master's understanding, the first nature, rationality of nature, which are explained, which are say the empty nature, the absence nature, of inherent or intrinsic with all the things and events. According to those Buddhist teachers, that is not ideology, but you can test. What they said, it is the nature, it is the reality. So I don't know whether there's a difference with ideology and reality. There are differences or not, but that is what I understood. What I said in the previous, I think you may be coming from there. The first three, the nature, the function, the dependency, these are for us, for ordinary people, in the more deeper layers or deeper levels, for us difficult to understand, difficult to cognize. In that sense, the last one, rationality of inferential proof, be the tool to understand the previous three rationality. This is, if I remember correctly, I've said that you might be asking that. That's what, if I didn't answer your question, you can say your question again.
Yes, I
I'll
think
try.
that's it. And then you said that if all causes and conditions are met, the result is
Yes.
definite. So, and I think there was also some commentary on nature,
Okay.
reality of nature is emptiness.
So what I said is, that when all the causes and conditions are met, the result is inevitable. That is the reality. That is the rationality. What here we are putting the second, and that is in the sense functioning. The causes and conditions are put together, and the result is inevitable. So the functions of the causes and conditions is in this, is talking about what is the function? It is the inevitable result. That is what I think. I'm not sure that's what I'm saying. But if you ask that question, I'm not sure how to make further clarification.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's
Okay.
certainly in the hand. Thank you.
Give it to gentleman.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether this question is related to this topic or not, but little bit. As you say, there is no cheat in our mind.
There's no
Cheat or consider a cheat like that,
tape.
where
Chip,
we
chip,
put
chip,
all our
chip.
memories.
Oh, yes.
So usually we believe in the scientific way there is something cheap or memory there
Okay.
where we store our data or memories or whatever condition or memory we can say. That is the rational thinking in a way. Means something I believe that there is something in my brain
Okay.
where I means what you can say store my own memory. That affect my further action or like that. So how can I understand that in Buddhist context? Or as you said, there is no cheat. Then where we store our memories or where is
Okay.
whatever, yeah. Or sense memory or whatever it is asked.
Okay, I use there's no chips, yeah? So I use there's no chips. Made in Thailand, or made in China, or made in America, or whatever. I'm talking about that physical thing. Literally, really. However, from the Buddhist understanding, while we remember the past, our experiences, and so forth, there's this yesterday and day before yesterday, I used several times the term, propensity, like a seed, not physical, when you use the seed, then people immediately get some kind of physical image that sometimes get confused, cause confusion. But I will use the term propensity, or another term is familiarities. You know, when I use the term familiarity, it doesn't need to be it happened in the past again and again and again. Sometimes very sharp, very, what you call the unique habits that go into your psyche. And that's what in the Buddhist term is called, in Tibetan is called bhaja. Bhaja quite often translated in English, saying propensity. There's some kind of not entity, what's the right word? See, so yeah, something is printed in our psyche. But it's not physical. It's definitely, I won't say definitely, but from the Buddhist understanding, it is not physical. Yeah. Anyway.
Thank you.
But not made in power.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a lunch time.